Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a great Thursday. So I would say Thursday morning, although it depends on where you are currently. And just to introduce myself here, you might have seen me before if you've been on any of our Safetica NXT webinars in the past. But if you haven't, my name is John Paste. I look after the U.S. market for Safetica. And today, as we have our standard, let's say, Safetica NXT monthly webinars, this month we are going to be going over some new U.S. data regulations. Now, this doesn't happen so often for those of you residing in the States and kind of, understanding or looking after the data regulations coming into play in the U.S. But at the beginning of July, we did have two new regulations come about. One of those being the Colorado Privacy Act and the other one being the Connecticut Privacy Act, to make it a bit shorter, but we have CPA and CTDPA. Now, again, these are primarily in relation to any consumer activities or consumer information in the state of Colorado or in the state of Connecticut. We'll get more into depth into kind of what these new data regulations mean and how to comply with them, and of course, how to use Safetica NXT to comply with them. So I will just carry on with that. Although before doing so, let me just check the time here. And we are about a minute or so in, almost 2 minutes in. So you know what, I'll just get going. And also, this will be available to watch later on in case maybe you've had some colleagues or other people who may be interested in this. We will be showing that later on as well. And it will be available on our YouTube page to watch later. So let's get into it here, and I'll just jump over then to the next slides here. So again, some new data privacy laws to enter in 2023. Now, we have had some other ones coming in so far. I believe there was also Utah also has a new data privacy legislation coming in. I believe it's going to be later this year, and I'm trying to think of whom else. I believe there's Virginia as well, although I believe Virginia was already at the beginning of the year. Oops, daisies. There we go. All right. So in regards to the Colorado Privacy Act, so kind of what is this? If you don't know, if you're not aware, and I will be reading off, of course, if you're just listening or something along these lines to make it easier for everybody. But who's going to be affected by this? So it will be businesses that are doing business essentially in Colorado or offering goods or services to people in Colorado, residents of Colorado. And basically the thresholds that are kind of around for this are either 100,000 consumers or more during a year for, let's say, Colorado residents or something like this, or 25,000 consumers or more derived revenue from selling personal data, for example, if that makes sense. So either 100,000 consumers that you're dealing with in terms of your business, either selling to or something along those lines for your business of any, let's say 100,000 consumers that are residents of Colorado, or 25,000 consumers or more when the revenue is coming from selling that personal information from those residents. And basically, what does this mean for the affected businesses? Well, naturally, we need to offer, or rather, these companies needs to offer some opt-out mechanisms for the selling of personal information, the targeting advertising, and things along these lines. Provide the consumers with a privacy notice of how their information is being used, and similar things along these lines. It is somewhat similar to GDPR in the sense of, basically my data is my data. I need to give you my consent to use this data to a degree. Again, we can see this does apply though to, depending on how you would classify that, maybe some larger organizations in terms of having that 100,000 consumer mark for the residents of Colorado during a given year, or again, that 25,000. But still, this is something that is concerning a lot of organizations. And generally speaking, as these data regulations go, they are first introduced in a, let's say, an effect where it will not affect a vast majority of the organizations, but it will affect these larger organizations, and it slowly trickles down to the smaller organizations as well as just all organizations in said state or region or country. Now, when it comes to the penalties for the non-compliance of this new regulation. Now, the fines can vary anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000 per infraction. So in the instance where somebody would be selling the information of somebody who did not consent to the selling of their data, if that is one individual, again, that would be $2,000 to $20,000. If that happens 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, I mean, you can do the math. That ends up being quite a lot of money, and generally that's not something that companies want to shell out that sort of information for, and they want to understand where their data is and to ensure that it's not going places where it shouldn't go, especially if these consumers have marked their information as do not sell or do not advertise or something along those lines. Now I will move on over to the Connecticut Data Privacy Act, and this is again relatively similar, and I believe also more and more states are going to be introducing these sort of legislation, or rather restrictions, or data privacy really. California was probably one of the first to do so in the states. Now there are some federal, let's say, data privacy acts, but that is more towards, let's say, also children and things along these lines, protecting their rights online. Now we have Colorado, Connecticut, Virginia, Utah will be coming, as well as Colorado, and hopefully more to come, because at the end of the day, we all need to make sure that our data is protected. And also that's what Safetica is here to do, is to ensure that either your data, your company's data, or whatever data you deem as sensitive is protected and is not leaving your environment unintentionally or even intentionally and maliciously. So anyways, let's get back to the Connecticut Data Privacy Act. It's very similar, again, to the Colorado Act that I just went over. So we can see, again, processing the data of 100,000 or more consumers when it comes to any sort of payment transactions or things along these lines, or the processing of data of the 25,000 or more consumers when the revenue derived from that is 25% of the gross revenue from selling the personal data. Now, of course, to get more, let's say, granular and to understand this further, it's definitely beneficial to go and research these data regulations rather than just, listening to me saying what we have here on this PowerPoint. Of course, we're no legal experts, but again, at the end of the day, to get more let's say, concrete information on these acts, you can go on to the state's websites, or just search these acronyms, or of course search the text, and you should be able to find what you're looking for. And again, what does it mean for the affected businesses? Allowing the consumers to opt out from the processing of that data and the collection of the data, and of course, standard data privacy things, honestly, at the end of the day. Also, again, similar to GDPR. It's modeled off the GDPR, although the bigger differences is with GDPR, it applies to any and all citizens of the EU, for example, whereas this, you do have these thresholds of the 100,000 or 25,000 or the 25% of the gross revenue and things along these lines. Again, as I mentioned, I believe these will, or rather this will kind of trickle down and become basically affecting more and more and more consumers and residents and individuals, to ensure that everybody's privacy basically is, private. And now we can see on the bottom here the penalties for the non-compliance. It's up to $5,000 per violation. Again, so if somebody's data ends up getting, let's say, captured or leaked or what have you, that could be $5,000 for that one instance. If it happens 5 times, if it happens 100 times, 1,000 times, depends how, and again, processing data of 100,000 or more customers. If you're even going to be leaking, 1% of that, that's a big chunk of money for your organization to have to shell out for, just a mistake, or could be a mistake, let's say, at the end of the day. Now, going on to the next slide here. So best practices to ensure the compliance with the Colorado and the Connecticut Data Privacy Act. Of course, to evaluate and update your privacy policies, conduct data protection assessments to ensure that your data is protected, or rather the client's data is protected, and that it's not leaking or going where it shouldn't. And of course, that you have the proper level of the, let's say, information from these clients. Implementing a universal opt-out mechanism, and developing a consent mechanism to collect the sensitive data. And of course, finally, implement appropriate security measures. And this is primarily where Safetica comes into play. And from this point on, I will hop into a demonstration, and let me just check the time here. Great, looks like we're doing good. And I will just switch then over to my other screen here. All right, and actually, let me just get this away. Perfect. So I am within Safetica Next right now. And for those of you who are not familiar with Safetica or Safetica Next, so first and foremost, Safetica is a data loss prevention solution provider, technology provider, software company, what have you. So we produce software that is data loss prevention. Safetica Next is our cloud-based SaaS offering. We also have Safetica One, which is a on-premise solution. So you can choose between the two if you prefer to have your offering in a SaaS format where you are paying either month by month or yearly. You're not hosting any of the data. You don't have to worry about any of that yourself. It's all hosted by ourselves in a secure Azure environment. That is what we're looking at right now. We also have Safetica One, which is the on-premise variant of our DLP offerings. And of course, that is you have your own servers, your own infrastructure, and you manage that all yourself. And of course, there's just two different ways of going about it. Some folks like to have that cloud offering, the SaaS, the flexibility of that, the month by month. Just makes it easier for some. Or again, if you prefer having that on-premise offering where you are in full control of everything. Again, whatever floats your boat at the end of the day, we have the offerings for both of these. But today I'll be primarily going over Safetica Next, but also something interesting to note is we will be seeing more and more and more of the features and functionality we have in Safetica Next coming into our on-premise offering, Safetica One, and also the UI and the layout and all of these things will also be increasingly similar between the two solutions, and also the templates that we have within Safetica Next and things along these lines. We'll be having this in Safetica One coming shortly as well, and I'll get on to that quickly. But first and foremost, this again, main dashboard here of Safetica Next. Now we can see on this main page, we just have a general overview of what is going on in the environment in terms of any potentially sensitive data leaving the organization. So we have high-risk events, some particularly high-risk activities, high-risk users, and maybe some recommended destinations to maybe make some edits to ensure the compliance, as well as some devices with issues, some environmental settings. Basically, this is kind of some tips and tricks to make sure you are using, or rather making the most of Safetica Next. We have some reports if you want to get a quick security audit report generated by the solution down here. Just click create, and then some links to our knowledge base and things along these lines. But again, as we're primarily talking about these two new regulations in Colorado and Connecticut, I'm just going to jump right into that to kind of show you how that would work in practice. So if we go over to data classification here, so we can see we have a bunch of different, let's say, data classifications. A lot of this, or if you're not familiar with this, this is essentially telling the solution basically what to look for in terms of the kind of information that it should be flagging, and basically what is it in relation to. So we can see we've got personal, healthcare, finance, or actually I'm kind of going out of order here, but company information, GDPR related information, all of these things, PCI DSS, Law 25, which is new for Canada if you're doing business in Quebec. And we also have these newly added ones here, the CDPA and CPA. So we got, actually got Virginia and Colorado. Looks like actually the Connecticut one for one reason or another, or actually maybe this is just mislabeled. I believe it is. So don't worry about that. But anyways, so we've got these templates here, but actually these two bottom ones here were done by myself. And we can see within here, we've got bank account numbers, employee numbers, and all these sort of things in relation to that. We do have more coming actually in relation to our driver's license numbers and things including the addresses for certain individuals of these states and things along these lines. But at the time being, we have a basic setup for the Colorado. Actually, we have Colorado, Virginia, Connecticut, and Utah, but it looks like here we just got something that needs to get touched up. But regardless, we can see we have many of these predefined templates here to use, to leverage, and of course, just makes everybody's lives easier in terms of setting these things up to make sure you are looking after the right information and restricting the, let's say, movement of that sensitive information. And basically how that would kind of work in practice, again, would be you have your data classifications, which we just went over quickly. Again, the data classification is if it includes this, or this, mark that file as such. And in this sense, we have it with our protection side. So let's say we wanted to block the information regarding Connecticut or the Colorado Privacy Act. So we can just do new act. Let's just do that. So let's put this as notify, or you know what, let's put it as block, because we probably would want to block these sort of things unless we are looking to get a fine. So the types of files we want to maybe be looking after, we can choose specific files, but in this case, we don't really care what the kind of file it is. Anything that would be in relation to the residents of those states, then we want to be able to ensure that that information is secure. Now, the data classification, that's where this bit comes in. So we can choose those ones which were toggled on. So we see we have, let's just choose these for example. And now we can see we are looking after both of these data regulations to ensure that none of that information is leaking. Now, select the destination type. And again, if we want to restrict the movement of this sort of information to any specific destinations, for example, USB, RDP, Google Drive, OneDrive, Personal, Dropbox, and so on and so forth, SharePoint, web, email upload, or web upload, email, instant messaging, screenshot, clipboard, all that good stuff. That can all be done here. Or if we just leave these things blank, everything is fine. And then basically it'll just capture any sort of destination that any of this sort of sensitive information would be going to. Also, finally, now there could be certain teams maybe which would be working with this sort of data, or maybe sending it outside the organization if needed. For example, I could see maybe for finance or accounting or somebody along these lines, they might need to have access to that information and maybe need to send it out to maybe some external payroll individual or something like this, or what have you. In that case, then of course you can set up the teams, but we don't have that specific, let's say, segment set here. So we can just leave that blank and it will select all teams that we have. But for example, if we only wanted to apply to one specific team, we just set it as such and then we're good to go. But we'll just leave that blank. And as simple as that, we can just save this. We can see we have this up here, new act, and now we are going to be blocking any information in regards to these new data privacy acts from leaving the organization, and also helping you not to get some hefty fines in relation to that. But even outside of the scope of these new data regulations, it's basically as simple as that to secure your sensitive information within your organization. Again, it really just depends on what you would define as sensitive information. It could be some internal IP related information. It could be invoices. It could be customer information. It could be many different things. Of course, it all just depends on how you would define your sensitive information. And again, that's what's done here in the data classification side of the solution. And because I really so far I've only touched on the dashboard as well as the data classification and protection side, I will just kind of jump through the product a little bit more again for maybe some of you who have not seen the product before, just to give you a better idea as to what it is, what it does, and the kind of insights you can get from it. So we can see on this top corner, of course, a very important thing here is to choose the time frame that we're looking into, but we can see the files in time down here. Looks like somebody was trying to share a lot of information here as well as here, also potentially here. And we can also have a look here at kind of what's been going on within these events. So emails sent to free email domains, external devices, so on and so forth. Again, we want to make sure that everybody has access to understand where their sensitive information is going. And this is, of course, one way to get that overview of doing so. Or, for example, we can just click here on the files in time. And we can see, for example, now this is set to the risk is high unconfirmed or it's high confirmed. The differentiation between these two is you can go down, for example, into some of these. And if it's not confirmed, it'll ask you to either confirm as high risk or confirm no risk. And this is primarily just in the case where maybe something would be a false positive or something along these lines. You don't have to go through and check or not check them. It's really just up to you if you wish to do so. But this is just based off of how the settings are currently set. And if you do reinforce those settings by clicking one of these, that'll just reinforce the solution to understand, okay, this is indeed a high risk event, and I will look further into other events like this in the future. That's a bit of the machine learning that we do have, or AI, or whatever you want to call it at the end of the day, within the solution. Let me just grab a drink of water. All right. And so getting back into here, also with the file timeline, we can see this event happened around 2 in the morning. It's kind of odd. And we go down through here and we see the bunch of high risk events, but none of them are necessarily in relation to any specific data category, but we do see something going on here to investigate that. And it looks like it hit the personal information in regards to some passport number in Australia. And once we go further into here, we have the risk analysis, and we can see some valuable files were transferred to a USB device and some other things as well. Yeah, transferred risk application, personal information detected, so on and so forth. And then go into the data classification, and we can see that there was one occurrence of a passport number and some other predefined algorithm here. Identifier Turkey. I don't know if that's actually showing as it should, but regardless, you get the idea. And also, this is all demo data, again, that I'm showing. This is not anybody's actual personal information or anything like this that I am showing. It is all demonstration data. Now, also, we can have a look and we see the actions here that were taken. Users were notified, but in this case, nothing happened. It was just the action was logged, and that was that. And we can see the users that were involved here, the destination, the source, and the source type, as well as then again, the destination more specifically. And if we do want to kind of look at this further, we can see we've got these little dots here, or lines rather, and there is more information that we can choose from and look within in here. But this is just kind of how we have it, let's say, predefined right now. Or also, if you would like to export this information, you can do so. And there we go, event overview. So now you can go into that Excel file and pull that up and have a look, let's say, again, in an Excel file, if reading through all of the data is just maybe easier or better in that case for you. Now, so far what I've been showing is purely just in relation to the incidents happening within the organization. Now, also, we can look at all events. If we don't necessarily care if it's in relation to sensitive data or not, if we just want to see how the users within the organization are leveraging the data they work with, how are they moving that data? Well, this is where we can see that information. So we can see a lot of information has been uploaded to the web. It looks like second most common here is USB, email, some other external paths or network paths. We can see also we have this light, or rather dark blue here, to safe destinations, but we also have here which were attempted to unsafe destinations. Same goes with the types of file categories we got going here. And again, for a list of all of the actions during that time period, then we have that all down here. And again, this is just for one day right now, but for example, we could do last 30 days. And of course, that'll give us a lot more information. And again, if it's maybe easier to drill down and look at the data, you can export it again into Excel and have a look there. Or of course, you can just continue to filter out via Safetica NXT and get the information you're looking for that way. Now, I'll just go quickly through a few other things because I want to leave a few minutes at the end for any questions if anybody would have any. So now we've got Shadow IT. This is primarily in relation to looking at the applications and websites that are being used on the employees' machines. We can see here some risky applications, but again, there's nothing, or rather, sorry, we don't have anything new showing up here because 0 out of 4, but we got some neutral ones showing up down here. And with the websites we got, then we can see we have some which are known, and then we've got a few here now, these 3 that are new. Same goes for the risky as well as safe. And then going down, drilling down through here, the activity overview. Then we have an idea as to, again, how the employees are using their time in terms of the sort of applications they're using, as well as the websites they're using. We can see the active time on this side listed here. And it looks like, of course, Google, it's a pretty common one to be using. Salesforce makes sense, or should make sense, at least for most organizations. Teams, WhatsApp, maybe not the greatest. Again, just depends on how you use WhatsApp in your organization, and so on and so forth. But we can see Facebook, Maybe LinkedIn. Maybe we don't want folks going on LinkedIn for one reason or another. WeTransfer, definitely don't want that. And, of course, the list can go on and on. But quick overview of that. And then also the user behavior section. This is just an overview of who's maybe the more risky user or the less risky user, depending on how they do things within the organization. But we can see this guy's, 104 files impacting the user risk. And it looks like a lot of things he does are risky, unfortunately. So could be something to look into and maybe have a talking to with that individual. But and other than that, I'll just touch quickly on destinations because again, we don't have so much more time left today, but we have the unassigned web destinations that, of course, just yet to be assigned. Untrusted, let's say the domains or something like that for uploading information to or to get notifications on Facebook, TikTok, WhatsApp, so on and so forth. And then safe, this would be anything that you're maybe using within the company or that is okay to be sharing information towards. Same goes with email. Again, unassigned, untrusted, safe. And finally, for USB, again, same difference, unassigned, untrusted, and safe for these mass storage devices and things along those lines. Again, this is just a very quick overview how you can secure your data within your company using Safetica NXT, also in relation to the new data regulations that are in play in Colorado and Connecticut, but of course also with the other regulations we have going on in the US, for example, in California, in Utah, in Virginia, and other places as well. And I will actually just jump back and let's see if we have any questions or anything like that in our chat. But I don't believe so at this time, but let me have a quick look. I don't believe we have anything. Let me just look here. All right, looks like we do have a few questions, and some of them are in relation to the sound. I apologize if the sound was cutting. Somebody says hello, hello. And also somebody in need of pricing. Yeah, that's not a problem at all. We'll be more than happy to provide the pricing after the fact. Right now, of course, not going to be providing the pricing because it does differ for whichever region you may be located in. For example, our pricing is different in, for example, Asia than it would be in Europe, and so on and so forth. Also, of course, to give you the pricing in the correct currencies and things along these lines. But of course, either myself or any of my colleagues or reps will then reach out to you and provide the information required. Other than that, though, I believe that is essentially it for today's webinar. Thank you all very much for hopping on this today and spending a little bit of time with me on your Thursday. And if you do have any more information or anything you're curious about, you can either go on to our website, which is easy enough to get onto. It's just safetica.com. We do also have a free demonstration, or rather, sorry, free demo. We do have a free demo actually on the website as well to view a recording, and then also we can sign up for a free trial also on our website, which makes things nice and easy and simple to do. And then you can use that trial. You can trial it in your own environment, or you can use the dummy data just to kind of play around similarly to what I'm doing here. But again, there's many different options on how you can go about this. Or also, if you would be interested in the on-premise offering, again, not a problem at all. Just you can reach out to us either, again, just via safetica.com. We have forms that can be filled in, or info at, also a great way to reach us. Or, of course, also via LinkedIn. Again, many different channels to reach out to us. And then we can help you and get going with your protection of your sensitive data. Thank you all very much for your time today. And hopefully see you soon. Have a good one.